Almost 8 o'clock here in Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to the 7th Republican presidential debate of the 2016 campaign. I'm Brett Baer, along with my co-moderators, Megan Kelly and Chris Wallace.
Tonight, we are coming to you live from the Iowa Event Center in downtown Des Moines, in the shadow of the Iowa State Capitol. In just 4 days, people here in the Hawkeye State will caucus and cast the first votes of the 2016 election.
Tonight, we're partnering with Google for an exclusive second screen experience. Search Fox News Debate on Google anytime in the next 2 hours to access exclusive content. You can see the campaigns respond to the debate in real time, and you can weigh in by voting on the topics being discussed. Just go to google.com or open your Google search app and type in Fox News Debate.
Google sees political searches spike during televised presidential debates. No surprise there, but they spike by more than 440% on average as voters across America seek to learn more about what's happening on the live debate stage.
7 candidates are on that stage tonight. Their position on the stage determined by their standing in the latest national polls, as well as polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. And here they are. Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Rubio.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
Ohio Governor John Kasich. And Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Apparently Iowa's near Kentucky. Tonight's rules are simple. Up to 60 seconds for each answer, 30 seconds for each follow-up response. And if a candidate goes over the allotted time, you will hear this. Oh, double.
Wow.
I think the double is the one we want. Very pleasing. We have a crowd of about 1,600 here, and while they have agreed to respect the candidates and listen intently, we can tell you they are very excited to be here. Am I right?
Get started. Senator Cruz, before we get to the issues, let's address the elephant not in the room tonight. Donald Trump has chosen not to attend this evening's presidential debate. What message do you think that sends to the voters of Iowa?
Well, Megan, let me say at the outset to the men and women of Iowa, thank you for the incredible hospitality over this past year. By Monday, you will have welcomed me into all 99 counties in Iowa. You will have welcomed my dad to preach at your churches. You will have welcomed Heidi and our girls, Caroline and Catherine, into your homes. And I am so grateful for the diligence, for the seriousness with which the men and women of Iowa approach this process. If I am elected president, keep an eye on the tarmac, because I'll be back. Because Iowa in 2017 will not be flyover country. It will be fly to country. Now, secondly, let me say, I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way, I want to thank everyone here for showing the men and women of Iowa the respect to show up and make the case to the people of this state and the people of the country why each of us believe we would make the best commander-in-chief.
The divide between you and Mr. Trump has turned into one of the biggest stories in the country. And for 6 months, during this campaign, you praised Mr. Trump as somebody who you thought was an effective voice against the Washington cartel. You said you were glad that he was running as a Republican. But when he started to criticize you, your message changed. And you suddenly started to portray him as the voice of the Washington cartel and suggested he would do the Democrats' bidding. Which is it?
Well, let me be clear. If Donald engages in insults or anybody else, I don't intend to reciprocate. I have not insulted Donald personally, and I don't intend to. I am glad Donald is running. I'm glad he has produced enormous enthusiasm. And to every Donald Trump voter or potential voter, I hope to earn your support. I know everyone else on this stage hopes to earn your support. Now, there is a difference between personal insults and attacks, between going into the mud with ad hominems and focusing on issues and substance. I think issues and substance, policy and vision and record should be the meat of politics. That's fair game, but that's where I'm going to focus. That is how I focused from the beginning of the campaign, and it's how I intend to continue going forward.
Senator Rubio, I want to explore this sort of larger issue. The campaign has, in a sense, turned into a battle for the soul of the Republican Party. Establishment versus grassroots, pragmatic versus principle. You say that you can unite all of the factions inside the GOP. How?
Chris, let's begin by being clear what this campaign is about. It's not about Donald Trump. He's an entertaining guy. He's the greatest show on earth. This campaign is about the greatest country in the world and a president who has systematically destroyed many of the things that made America special. You see, we usually elect presidents in America that want to change the things that are wrong in America. Barack Obama wants to change America. Barack Obama wants America to be more like the rest of the world. We don't want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be the United States of America. And that is why Hillary Clinton cannot win this election. Hillary Clinton this week said Barack Obama would make a great Supreme Court justice. The guy who systematically and habitually violates the Constitution on the Supreme Court? I don't think so. If I'm our nominee, I will unite this party, and we will defeat Hillary Clinton, and we will turn this country around once and for all after 7 years of the disaster that is Barack Obama.
Thank you.
Governor Bush, it's hard for anyone with your pedigree to avoid being called establishment. But isn't that part of the problem in this race, that three others on this stage are splitting the mainstream Republican vote and thereby possibly handing this nomination over to an anti-establishment candidate?
Brett, we're just starting. The first vote hasn't been counted. Why don't we let the process work? I trust Iowans, Granite Staters, people in South Carolina, people in Nevada to start this process out. I kind of miss Donald Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. We always had such a loving relationship during these debates and in between and the tweets. I kind of miss him. I wish he was here. Everybody else was in the witness protection program when I went after him on behalf of what the Republican cause should be. Conservative principles, believing in limited government, believing in accountability, leading by fixing the things that are broken. Look, I'm an establishment because my dad, the greatest man alive, was President of the United States, and my brother, who I adore as well, is a fantastic brother, was president. Fine, I'll take it. And I guess I'm part of the establishment because Barbara Bush is my mom. I'll take that too. But this election is not about our pedigree. This is an election about people that are really hurting. And we need a leader that will fix things and have a proven record to do it. And we need someone who will take on Hillary Clinton in November, someone who has a proven record, who's been tested, who's totally transparent. I released 34 years of tax returns and 300,000 emails in my government record. To get the information from Hillary Clinton, you need to get a subpoena from the FBI.
Thank you, Governor.
Campaign touting your record as a Republican from a blue state who knows how to get things done and reach across the aisle. However, many Republicans feel that reaching across the aisle and getting things done isn't great if you get the wrong things done, and they prefer to stand on principle rather than compromise. Why are they wrong and you're right?
They're not wrong, but what's wrong is your premise in the question. You can do both. There is no reason why you can't stand for principles, go and fight for them, and be able also to have to get things done in government. You know, what people are frustrated about in Washington, D.C., and I know the folks out there tonight, are incredibly frustrated because what they see is a government that doesn't work for them. You know, for the 45-year-old construction worker out there who's having a hard time making ends meet, who's lost $4,000 in the last 7 years in his income because of this administration, he doesn't want to hear the talk about politics, Megan, and who's establishment and who's grassroots and who's compromise and who's principle. What he wants is something to get done. And that's the difference between being a governor and having done that for the last 6 years in New Jersey and being someone who has never had to be responsible for any of those decisions. Barack Obama was never responsible for those decisions. Hillary Clinton has never been responsible for those kind of decisions where they were held accountable. I've been held accountable for 6 years as the governor of New Jersey, and with the Democratic legislature, I've gotten conservative things done. That is exactly what I'll do as President of the United States.
Senator Paul, you're definitely not in the establishment category. But at the beginning of this campaign, you said you were your own man when asked about your father, former Texas Congressman and three-time presidential candidate Ron Paul. Senator Cruz's campaign is out with a video saying that Cruz is the intellectual and political heir to your father's 2012 campaign and the Liberty Movement. And your father now says that it's realistic that Donald Trump will be your party's nominee. So did you make a mistake by not more fully embracing your father politically at the beginning of this campaign?
You know, I've always had a great deal of respect. There's probably no person I respect more in the country or in recent history than my father. I think he was probably the most honest man in politics that we've ever seen in a generation. And so in no way have I ever said that I don't embrace my father or love my father or appreciate everything that he's done for the country. I think what's interesting about where that liberty vote goes that my father brought to the Republican Party is I don't think they're necessarily going to go for Ted. You know, Ted didn't show up. We had an audit the Fed vote, which was the biggest thing my dad had been advocating for 30 years. Ted didn't have time to show up. He was the only Republican that didn't show up for it. And so I think really that vote is going to stay in the Paul household. I think more of it's coming and it's going to grow. The NSA is another big issue. Ted said he was for NSA reform. But then he told Marco Rubio, oh, no, I voted for the bill because I'm for the government collecting 100% of your cell phone records. I don't think Ted can have it both ways. They want to say they're getting some of the Liberty vote, but we don't see it happening at all. We think we're going to do very well in Iowa with the Liberty vote.
Senator Cruz, your response to that?
Well, I agree with Rand that I very much respect Ron Paul, and that I think anyone who's got to be able to win in the Republican Party has to be able to bring together the disparate elements of the Reagan coalition. You've got to be able to bring together conservatives and evangelicals and libertarians and stitch together a winning majority. When it comes to the audit the Fed bill, as Rand knows well, I was an original sponsor of the bill. I am strongly supportive of it. It didn't have the votes to pass, and I had commitments to be at a town hall in New Hampshire, but I look forward to signing that bill into law as president and to auditing the Fed and providing needed accountability at the Federal Reserve.
But
Senator Rubio?
I think, Rand and I have some significant issues on policy, but I respect Rand. He believes everything he stands for. I do respect Rand, but I want to be frank about what I stand for. I believe the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest power in the world. And I believe only with a strong America will we defeat this radical group, this apocalyptic group called ISIS. That's why when I'm president, we are going to rebuild our intelligence capabilities, and they're going to tell us where the terrorists are. And a rebuilt U.S. military is going to destroy these terrorists. And if we capture any of these ISIS killers alive, they are going to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And we're going to find out everything they know. Because when I'm president, unlike Barack Obama, we will keep this country safe.
Thanks, Senator.
Governor Mike, may I respond?
We'll come back to
Well, I was talking about the question. Just very quickly, I'd like to respond. The bulk collection of your phone data, the invasion of your privacy, did not stop one terrorist attack. I don't think you have to give up your liberty for a false sense of security. When we look at this bulk collection, the court has looked at this. Even the court declared it to be illegal. If we want to collect the records of terrorists, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Let's use the Fourth Amendment. Let's put a name on a warrant. Let's ask a judge for it. Let's respect the history of our country. John Adams said that we fought the war for independence because we wanted to fight against generalized warrants. Let's don't forget that.
Governor Kasich, I want to get back to this question of where conservatives are this year. You call yourself a, quote, inside-outside guy, a reformer who knows how to get things done, but you reject the establishment label. First question is, why do you reject it? And secondly, what do you say to Republican voters this year who view practical government experience as a liability and not an asset?
Well, first of all, I had a national reporter say, there's three lanes. There's the establishment lane, the anti-establishment lane, and then there's the Kasich lane. And the reason is that I've been a reformer all of my career, fighting to reform welfare, fighting to reform the Pentagon, also being in a position to balance the budget, because that is very, very hard to do. And then in Ohio, of course, I had to bring about big reform again, because we were so far in the hole, and now we've just found out that we are up over 400,000 jobs since I took over as governor. You know, the situation is this. We cannot fix things in this country, the Social Security, the border, balancing the budget, getting wages to grow faster, unless we lead as conservatives, but we also invite people in from the other party. We have to come together as a country, and we have to stop all the divisions. And, you know, that's been my message in New Hampshire. And having been in New Hampshire and here in Iowa, but in New Hampshire, I just received the support of 7 out of 8 of the newspapers in that state, because they see positive, they see unity, they see coming together, and they see a record of change and a record of accomplishment. And it isn't because I'm all that great. It's because I've been assembling a team of people who want to be involved in something that's a little bigger than themselves. I'll keep heading in that direction, believe me.
Dr. Carson, I want to pick up on that with you. Governor Kasich likes to say he knows how to land the plane. You've landed a lot of planes in the OR. But what about the idea of running for president with no experience in government at all?
Well, I will gladly confess that I'm the only one on this stage with no political title. You're not going to hear a lot of polished political speech from me, but you will hear the truth. And I don't think you have to be a politician to tell the truth. In fact, sometimes it's not that way around. And I've had more 2 a.m. phone calls than everybody here put together, making life and death decisions, put together very complex teams to accomplish things that have never been done before. And we are in a situation right now in our country that we have never been in before. We need people who think out of the box and can solve problems, can utilize the resources around them, very smart people, to focus on the problem and solve the problem. The American people are terrified. That's why we have this abnormal situation going on right now. We don't need more of the same solutions. We need different solutions to solve the problems and to save our nation.
Gentlemen, we're now going to start to drill down into specific issues that are on voters' minds, and we're going to start with one of the biggest ones, which is foreign terror. According to Google, ISIS was by far the most searched foreign policy topic over the last year. Senator Cruz, you talk tough about fighting terrorism. You talk about carpet bombing into oblivion. You talk about seeing if the sand will glow at night. But critics say that your record does not match up to that. You opposed giving President Obama authority to enforce his red line in Syria. 3 years in a row now, you have voted against the Defense Authorization Act. How do you square your rhetoric with your record, sir?
Well, Chris, I will apologize to nobody for the vigorousness with which I will fight terrorism, go after ISIS, hunt them down wherever they are, and utterly and completely destroy ISIS. You know, you claim it is tough talk to discuss carpet bombing. It is not tough talk. It is a different fundamental military strategy than what we've seen from Barack Obama. Barack Obama right now, number one, over 7 years, has dramatically degraded our military. You know, just 2 weeks ago was the 25th anniversary of the first Persian Gulf War. When that war began, we had 8,000 planes. Today we have about 4,000. When that war began, we had 529 ships. Today we have 272. You want to know what carpet bombing is? It's what we did in the first Persian Gulf War. 1,100 air attacks a day. Saturation bombing that utterly destroyed the enemy. Right now, Barack Obama is launching between 15 and 30 air attacks a day. He's not arming the Kurds. We need to define the enemy. We need to rebuild the military to defeat the enemy, and we need to be focused and lift the rules of engagement so we're not sending our fighting men and women into combat with their arms tied behind their backs.
Senator Rubio, does Senator Cruz's record match his rhetoric?
Well, again, I mean, obviously, as already been pointed out, the only budget that Ted has ever voted for is a budget that Rand Paul sponsored that brags about cutting defense spending. And I think that's a bad idea for the following reason. ISIS is the most dangerous jihadist group in the history of mankind. ISIS is now found in affiliates in over a dozen countries. ISIS is the group that burns people alive in cages, that sells off little girls as brides. ISIS is the group that wants to trigger an apocalyptic showdown in the city of Dabiq, not the city of Dubuque. I said that once around time. The city of Dabiq in Syria. They want to trigger an apocalyptic Armageddon showdown. This group needs to be confronted and defeated. They are not going to go away on their own. They're not going to turn into stockbrokers overnight or open up a chain of car washes. They need to be defeated militarily, and that will take overwhelming U.S. force. Today, we are on pace to have the smallest army since the end of World War II, the smallest navy in 100 years, the smallest air force in our history. You cannot destroy ISIS with a military that's being diminished. When I'm president, we are rebuilding the U.S. military because the world is a safer and a better place when America is the strongest military in the world.
Excuse me, Senator Cruz, you got 30 seconds. You were mentioned.
Chris, in 1981, when Ronald Reagan came to the Oval Office, he encountered a military that had been debilitated just as the current military has. Just like Jimmy Carter weakened our readiness, undermined our ability to defend this country, so too has Barack Obama. Just as morale in the military has plummeted in the last 7 years, so it had then. What Reagan did is he began with tax reform and regulatory reform, unleashing the engine of the American free enterprise system. It brought booming economic growth, and that growth fueled rebuilding the military. I intend to do the exact same thing to defeat radical Islamic terrorism and to devote the resources from the booming economy to rebuilding our Navy, rebuilding our Air Force, rebuilding our Army, and ensuring we have the capacity to keep this country safe.
Mike, my budget was mentioned.
May I just say that we are going to continue the questions about foreign terror, gentlemen, right after this break.
But first, you can join tonight's conversation right from home. Go to Google.com or open your Google search app and search Fox News Debate to vote on which candidate you think has the best plan to defeat ISIS. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's get right back to the questions. Chris.
Thank you. Governor Christie, you have compared both Senators Cruz and Rubio to Barack Obama, saying that we cannot afford another inexperienced president. You've also said that Senator Cruz's vote to curtail the NSA surveillance program made America less safe. Is either of them ready to be commander-in-chief?
Well, let me tell you something. I do believe that the vote on NSA made the country less safe. But let me tell you what the country should really be worried about. I watched that town hall meeting with the Democrats the other night, and I heard Hillary Clinton ask a direct question by an Iowan, and that's what Iowans like to do. They like to ask direct questions. And they asked about her email situation. And here's what she said to the American people. She did it for convenience. For her convenience. She put America's secrets at risk for her convenience. She put American intelligence officers at risk for her convenience. She put American strategy at risk for her convenience. Let me tell you who's not qualified to be President of the United States, Chris. Hillary Rodham Clinton did that to our country. She is not qualified to be President of the United States. The fact is, what we need is someone on that stage who has been tested, who has been through it, who has made decisions, who has sit in the chair of consequence, and who can prosecute the case against Hillary Clinton on that stage. That is exactly what I am ready to do.
Governor Bush.
Chris, I was mentioned in that question.
No, your name wasn't mentioned, Ted.
Actually, I don't think your name was mentioned. I think the vote, no, sir.
Chris, your question said you've attacked.
I think the question was about, it's not my question that you get a chance to respond to. It's his answer. You don't get 30 seconds to respond to me.
Your question was you have disagreed.
You don't get 30 seconds to respond to me.
His opening statement.
I'd like to go on, sir. I know you like to argue about the rules, but we're going to conduct the debate. Governor Bush, here's the question. Governor Bush, here's the question. I'm going to ask Governor Bush the question. You've criticized several candidates in this field on this stage for what you call unrealistic ideas about how to fight terrorists, including Rubio and Cruz, on the issue of their refusing to give the president authority to enforce the red line in Syria. But given the fact that your brother got us into 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that have still not ended, what lessons have you learned from his mistakes, sir?
Well, first, I was critical of the senators not giving the president the authorization to use the military force. They should have made it more open-ended for the next president. We shouldn't have the warfighters have their arms tied behind their back, as President Obama wanted to do, but they had a chance to show support, and it wasn't popular at the time. It became popular after the attack in Paris and San Bernardino. Now we hear the tough talk. Prior to that, in the Reagan Library, I gave a detailed plan exactly what to do as it relates to ISIS. And it is from the lessons of history that we do this, because if we allow this to fester, we're going to have Islamic terrorism, multi-generations of it, all across this country. The caliphate of ISIS has to be destroyed, which means we need to arm directly the Kurds, embed our troops with the Iraqi military, re-engage with the Sunni tribal leaders, get the lawyers off the damn backs of the military once and for all, have a no-fly zone in Syria, and create safe zones to deal with the refugees, but more importantly, to train a Sunni-led force in Syria to take out ISIS with our support on the ground and air. That's what we need to do, and I laid that out prior to the crisis with the advice of a lot of people, including 12 Medal of Honor recipients that I'm proud that they're supporting my campaign.
Senator Cruz, now you get a chance to respond.
Chris, I would note that the last 4 questions have been Rand, please attack Ted. Marco, please attack Ted. Chris, please attack Ted. Jeb, please attack Ted. Let me just say this.
It is a debate, sir.
Well, no, a debate actually is a policy issue, but I will say this, gosh, if you guys ask one more mean question, I may have to leave the stage. Chris, the most important determination any voter is going to make in this election is who's best prepared to be commander-in-chief. Who has the experience, who has the knowledge, who has the judgment, who has the clarity of vision and strength of resolve to keep this country safe. That is what this debate is all about, and I would suggest let's stay focused on those issues rather than just attacks directed at each other.
I think the questions were about issues, but Senator Rubio,
I was mentioned
what would you like to say?
Yes, sir. As well by Senator Cruz.
First of all,
I'd like to respond.
Let me go first, and then you can please recognize Rand after. But first of all,
thank you, Marco.
First of all, don't worry, I'm not leaving the stage no matter what you ask me.
Good.
And second of all, think, Governor Jeb, the attack, the authorization that Barack Obama asked for was not against ISIS. It was against Assad.